Panlilio?
Yeah, pan, lily, and then O. So like a frying pan, like lily the flower, then just add an O on the end. That
Okay.
is the easiest way to explain it to people. They're like, pan. So I'm like,
Panlilio.
that's it.
Okay. Today we're discussing the teen years with Desiree Panlilio. She's the author of One Friend, Two Friends, Good Friend, Bad Friend, Teens Guide to Creating Lifelong Relationships. It's available on Amazon, and you can also purchase it on her website. So Desiree, I want to be clear. The teen years are between the ages of 13 and 19. A lot of people think that the teen years stop at 18 and they're adults. They transition to adulthood after 18, right? Many parents may think that, well, after the teen years have come to an end, that parenting stops.
They do.
But after 18, that child, the mind of the child, is not ready to take on adulthood. That's why we called it young adulthood, right?
Exactly. Their brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So what parenting does is it transitions, right? And parenting, through the whole parenting cycle, transitions. We transition from when we have an infant to how the toddler, to the teen years, to the young adult, to even beyond that. We never stop being a parent. I tell people, parenting is like getting a tattoo on your face. It's a lifelong commitment.
Yes. It transitions, like you said. So at the age of, in the teen years, parenting is about teaching, education. After that, it's about supporting, assisting. It's no longer about controlling and disciplining, right? It takes on a different stage, a different, what's a good word for that?
A different role. Your roles change. Parenting is always that time when you're mentoring, you're kind of role modeling, you're teaching, and then as they get older, you really get to fulfill different roles. When our kids are really young, we're really doing a lot of mentoring. We're showing them how to behave. We're role modeling, right? I tie my shoes, you tie your shoes, right? They become a teen, we start having discussions. Even when they're young, we're having discussions about values. And then as they become adults, we're doing that real mentorship, that real role modeling as they become young adults, whether they're in college. How do we talk to them? It has to change, or you lose that connection. You lose that relationship with your child, your teen, your young adult, if we're not transitioning as parents. It's really important. And the teen years are that critical year. They're that tough time where our kids are trying to figure it out. They're not so much into their parents, they're far more into their peers. And that's normal, right? We're supposed to embrace that as parents, but sometimes it's a little hard.
Yeah, and the teen years, like you said, it could be a little hard. It could be difficult. And I think whoever made up the idea that teen years stop at 18 and adulthood begins, and there's this thing going around where after 18, then they can go on by themselves and live their own lives. But the reality of that is that I've heard from therapists and psychologists is that the mind is not developed into an adult yet, not even until maybe their 30s, right? So they need your assistance, they need your guidance to learn how to become an adult, right?
Right. Well, you think about it, if we go back to, the caveman, not that we want to go back, but you go back there, we all lived in a tribe, right?
Yeah.
And everyone had a key component. So you're always learning, always developing. There's the elders that have so much wisdom that they can get passed down to the younger. And we still need to do that. Our teens and even, our young adults, they need us. They need us to be there, to be their mentor, to be their sounding board, to give them that advice, to say, hey, I've kind of walked in those shoes. This is how I handled it. You don't have to do that. But here's some ideas. And that starts in the teen years. We need to start having those conversations where we share with them that this is really tough. Here's kind of what I did, but what would you like to do? How do you think you should handle it with all the nuances of today's world coming into play?
Right. So let's talk about those teen years.
Absolutely.
The teen years can be challenging. It can be trying because your child has now opinions, their own beliefs, their own ideas about things. They challenge you. And it can be easy for us to just want to hurry it up and get them to adulthood so that we can get this stage over with. Can you give us any tips or some understanding as to how we can better deal with those years. Help us to understand them.
So, the biggest thing about teens and the teen years is they stop identifying with parents and they want to belong to a group, their own peer group. And that's normal, right?
Yes.
So, and today we have social media influencing it. So they're looking at social media, they're looking at those different things. And so they're challenging you as a parent. And as a parent, instead of taking it as an affront and being mad or angry about it, sit down with them, go, where did you get that? If they want to challenge your views, where did you get that? And then come back to, well, here's our family values. Here's our values. Here's what I value. Whether it's honesty, integrity, whatever those, hard work, whatever those values are, start explaining them and having those conversations. Because integrity when they're 2 versus integrity when they're 15 are 2 different things, right? And teens are going to push that envelope because ultimately they're looking for the quick fix. Oh, this makes me happy now. Going to this party makes me happy now. They don't think about, I shouldn't go to this party. I should study, or I should write that essay that's due on Monday. They'll just blow it off till Sunday night when it comes crashing down as a family crisis, right?
Yeah.
Not that they're bad. It's who they are as teens. And as parents, we need to take a breath, take a beat, and go, I understand that, but here's how this works. And disciplining changes too as a teen. When you become a teen, you want to make sure you're explaining to them the reason behind the discipline.
Yeah.
That builds the relationship, right? You can't go to that party on Friday night because you have a paper due Monday and you haven't started it. So you know what? I'm making the tough call for you. They're going to be mad, but somehow they get to blame you, the parent, but they also are like relieved that you've stepped in and they understand why. It's not, you can't go.
Exactly. I want to touch on that. During the teen years, they may challenge us. They may tell us how they would like it to be. But in the end result, after you make that hard decision and you say no, they will be so thankful that you were a parent to them, not their friend, a parent. And a lot of time parents try to mix the two, friendship and parenting. And yes, it's okay we want to get along with our family. We want to connect with them, but there has to be a boundary there. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely, there has to be a boundary. And that boundary is all about trust, right? Early on, when you start, when you have kids, you start building that trust, you start building that relationship, that unconditional love that we as parents give our kids. It's about creating those boundaries with our kids. And it's super important to let them know that I'm your friend when we're watching, The Bachelor or The Bachelorette on TV, or we're watching Bridgerton, whatever it is, right? I'm your friend and we're laughing and we're having fun.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, that authoritative type of role where I'm helping you make the best decisions for you. And I think that's the thing that sometimes parents forget. You can't say it's my way or the highway or do as I say, not as I do. You have to have those discussions. I think we've learned that over the years, that saying, that's not the behavior I want. And here's why. Here's our family values it doesn't line up with. Here's how this is going to affect you in 2 weeks from now for not doing that project. And teens haven't figured that out. It's not good or bad. They're in the here and the now. They haven't thought about 2 weeks from now. And that's what we have to do as parents. We have to remind them of the consequences.
You're right. Speaking about that, I'm glad you touched on that, because the mind of a teen, like you said, they're not thinking about tomorrow. They're thinking about what I need right now. How do I feel right now? They don't know how to handle their emotions with those thoughts that are coming to the mind. They don't know how to process certain things. So they're going through a lot, right? A lot of even adults, right? It takes time for us to develop into that and understand those emotions, those feelings, what we're thinking about, how we're processing certain information. Family dynamics, there's so much that goes into it. But for parents to sort of bridge the gap and say, okay, my teen is going through something, whatever it is, that attitude, that disagreement, that challenge, that energy that they're giving off. How can parents meet their child where they're at in that moment in this busy world?
It's really about creating presence, right? So you have to build that trust, but as a parent, you need to be present. So often as a parent, we want to hear our teen's problem, we want to manage it, fix it, and move on, right? right? I'm going to manage your problem. You're going to tell me your problem. I'm going to say there's tons of boys in the world. Go find a new boyfriend. Not a big deal. Hey, now I can go back to what I was doing. And
it's a quick fix.
Right. And that's what the parents do. Instead of sitting down and going, the boy doesn't like you. How are you feeling about that? Let them have those feelings. Process them. Get that gallon of ice cream out, whatever it takes, and let them share with you, right? And our world's become so crazy busy that we're not listening. I always listen with curiosity, listen to understand. You might have had a breakup as an adult, right? We've had breakups, we've dated, we've broken up, or we've gotten a bad test grade, we've gone through that. For your kid, for your teenager, that's their first time. All of a sudden, if you think about that, you stop and you go, that's their first time experiencing this emotion in this event. So stop and listen to them. That is what your team, they want you to listen. They want you to be present in their emotions and their feelings. And if you do that, I think as parents, you'll really have that connection and you'll be able to help your team through that emotion and really letting them have those emotions. Years ago, we didn't do that. Years ago, we would just kind of brush them off, right? That, how do I manage you? How do I solve it? How do I carry on? I don't care what you're thinking, right? I just got to move on as a parent. But we've stopped that. We've realized we need to let our teens learn those emotions so as they grow into being an adult, they know what frustration feels like versus anger, what heartbreak feels like, you know, what does it feel like to be sad? We need them to be able to have those emotions.
Right. I like that you said that. That's amazing. That traditions, right? Family traditions and the way parenting was looked at as a success in the past has evolved. We've learned more, right? We've come a long way in parenting and making that transition and that and accepting that newness that, oh, this worked before, this is what we thought. But now we have more information and we need to adjust to that information for the sake of our kids.
We absolutely do. Parenting, years ago, I used to tell parents used to think of parenting as a competition, right? Think about it. If you think about, you know, parents
still do sometimes.
Sometimes I do, and I'm trying to create the narrative that that's not what it is. And I understand when our kids were little, right? When they rolled over was a milestone. When they stood up, all those things are milestones. There's also some physical and, you know, medical reasons that we need to make sure that they're rolling over, that they're doing all these different milestones. All of a sudden, those milestones don't matter in high school. Right? If my kid is taking AP calculus and your kid is taking geometry, but your kid wants to be a history major and my kid wants to be a scientist building a rocket, they're different places. So you can't compete, right? And I tell parents that it's not a competition. When you make it a competition, you erode trust in your relationship with your teen because they don't want to share stuff with you, right? When you start comparing your teen with the teen next door or their best friend, you create tension in those friendships too, your teen friendships. When, you know, you say, well, so-and-so got an A and you got a C. Well, now your teen doesn't want to share with you their grades. They don't want to be friends with that person anymore. So I tell parents, parenting is not a competition. It's how do you embrace your teen and make them the best version of themselves and make them the adult that can go out and function in the world.
Relatability, right? When you were talking about connecting with your child's experience, it may be that child's first time experiencing that. We need to be able to connect with them in their moments, right? So when a teenager is going through something, they're expressing anger, frustration, they're irritated, they're frustrated, they're lashing out. Some of them may be having tantrums in ways that it may not look like a toddler kicking and you know, throwing and screaming. It may look different. How can you tell us, how would a tantrum for a teenager look?
You know, tantrums for teenagers are a lot different. You're right. They're not kicking and screaming. A lot of time, the teen feels that their parent isn't listening. So that erodes the relationship, right? And it breaks down that trust. And so what happens is the teen shuts you out. That's what anger from a teen looks like. If I'm sharing something personal with you and I'm being vulnerable to you as a teen and I'm like, this just happened and it's heartbreaking, or, you know, I just failed this test and I'm frustrated, or, hey, I didn't study and I still failed the test. There's different conversations. But when you as a parent aren't engaging in that and letting them have those emotions and working with them, they'll just shut you out. They won't share. And I always tell parents, when your teen stops talking to you is when you really need to pause and really listen.
Yeah.
Really sit down, and maybe it is taking them out and going, hey, we're not communicating. There's something I've done as a parent. And parents go, well, it's my teen's fault. You know, ultimately, as a parent, it's your fault. And parents hate to hear that, but if the communication's broken down, it doesn't matter when you say my teen needs to communicate better. As a parent, we need to communicate better because our teen's role modeling their communication after us.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to make sure that we are, what's going on? Share with me. Tell me, I kind of messed up, I didn't pay attention. And as a parent, that's a big thing to saying, I'm sorry, I was really wrapped up in work, or I was really wrapped up in getting dinner ready, or I was wrapped up in taking your brother to a sporting event. I didn't give you the attention that you needed when you told me whatever that thing, you know, whatever the situation. Can we come back to it? I really want to hear you.
So when a teenager is digressing and you notice that, I want to say this. They're forgiving, right? Parents make mistakes. Yes, they do see you as perfect, but they're forgiving. And if you are a parent that fixes it, that notices what needs to be done and goes to fix the problem, or finds a solution and takes action and engages in that, your teenager will be forgiving towards you and realize and recognize that my mom or my dad cares and they see me, and yeah, maybe it took some time, but they get to it. They eventually come around. So when a teenager is digressing and they're going into their bedrooms and they're not talking to you and they're having attitudes with you and they're looking at you sideways and all of the above, right? It's okay if you made a mistake and you admit that to them. I made a mistake, and let's fix it. Let's work on it. Let's talk about it. Let's have the conversation.
That's huge, because you would do that with your partner, right? You would do that with your partner. If you totally, you know, whatever, forgot to pick your partner up at the airport and they were stuck there, and you're like, oh, well, I guess get an Uber now, right? You would have a discussion about it, and you would say, I am so sorry, it wasn't on my radar. So when something happens with your teen, it takes a moment to say, yeah, maybe I was a little dismissive about the drama at school, because teens are going through drama, right? They're trying to figure out their peer group. They're trying to figure out who their friends are.
Oh my goodness, let's talk about school. The school structure. I've been wanting to say this for a long time now. This public school structure, it is not built for the success of a young adult, of a student, of a teenager. They need to move. They need to get up. They need to share their emotions. They need to have conversations. My goodness, they're sitting in that chair for hours upon hours, cramming information coming at them, and they are required, and they're taking the tests, and they have to pass, and they have to do the homework, and then they get home and they shut down, right? And a lot of parents, when they get home and they think that the teenager or their child, they just need space, or they just need time to, you know, just be themselves, and then that becomes all day, and then the next day comes, and the following week comes, and the next month, and next thing you know, there's a disconnect there.
Right.
What do you think about the school structure?
I would love to be hired to fix the whole school system.
I know, I would help you.
I would love it to start back at preschool, kindergarten, right? Those kids need to play, they need to run around. You know, I tell parents, you know, I just talked to a parent not too long ago who told me that their kid was in kindergarten and they got them a tutor to help them to read faster. And I'm like, and I just kind of was like, Harvard's not going to not come knocking because your kid didn't read in kindergarten. And I wasn't trying to be mean, but that's the reality of it, right?
Yes.
Let them be kids. You know what's more important in kindergarten? Learning how to share, learning how to sit next to somebody, learning how not to take the food from the person sitting next to you because you like their cookie better than yours. Yeah. And it sounds really silly, but it's learning kindness. We have forgotten that kids need recess. Recess and gym and unstructured playtime is huge. That is where those soft social skills come in.
Those are the building blocks.
Yes, and academics are important. I understand that. but we have put academics ahead of their social skills. And I think we start to see that. We start to see that later. We're starting to see it in society, right? We're less kind, we're less patient. And I'm thinking, how much of that could we have, skirted if we had taught that back in school, like being patient, having recess, waiting your turn to get on a swing. Sounds silly, but it's learning patience. And we're not doing that with our kids anymore. And we're all about this academic level. And then it comes back to that competitive parent, right?
Because when they go to get that job or start that business or do anything in life, it requires the ability to communicate. It requires the ability to get along with others. When you're working in customer service, right? You have to learn how to communicate, how to deal with different personalities. When you're working in business, you have to be able to do the same. So when our teenagers, our young adults, our children are not allowed to develop those skills after they turn 18, 19, after the teen years, 19, they have a hard time.
They do. They have a hard time finding friends when they go to college, right? Because they've never had to talk to the stranger sitting next to them, right? Because we don't have that free time in the public school system or even the private school system. It doesn't any school system where, you know what, they have to sit with a stranger, right? You have to sit. You have to get to know people. Like I just remember, when I went to school, every year the classes got mixed up. Now parents, I feel, are too involved, and this group of 4 little girls are going to go into 5th grade together, 6th grade together. They're going to have the same subjects together because parents start to get involved in it. And I'm like, that doesn't help them later in life. It doesn't help them when they go to college. It doesn't help them, like you said, they get a job. Now I got to talk to strangers? Whoa. I've never had to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to ask what I want. Asking a professor for an extension, sitting in a job interview when someone goes, what are your goals? And them going, I don't know. Where?
Oh, someone's asking me something about me, right?
Exactly.
That's their reaction to it because they're not used to having someone care, someone take the time to communicate, someone take the time to get to know them because they were not given the opportunity for someone to do that. And if we start at home, let's go back to home.
Yes, it all starts there.
Tell us about that.
It all starts with how you parent. There's all this research on parenting, and people often ask, what is the best way to parent? And I'm like, you want to parent with love, unconditional love, but you also want to be authoritative, not authoritarian where you're like, my way, the highway, do this, do that, but authoritative, where they know that you're kind of the pack leader for, example, as a parent when they're young, right? Kids need structure even when they're older. And teens, I always tell parents, teens want an out. When stuff goes bad, they really want to say, my mom, no way can I do that. And that was something my kids could always say. They could say, my mom or my dad said, I can't go to the party. So they already have an out. I have big shoulders. I don't need to be any of my teens' friends. And I tell parents that. Often, parents get wrapped up, again, like you said earlier.
Yes.
Friendship, right? I want to be my kid's friend. I want to know what they're doing. No, you might want to live vicariously through them, which you don't want to do. You want to be that parent. You want to have that trusting relationship with boundaries, with respect, with integrity, with making sure that your teen can come to you with anything and you're going to help them, that you're going to respect what they're sharing with you. If you're your kid's best friend, a lot of that conversation doesn't happen. If you're that authoritative parent where they go, I can call them, I can talk to them about anything, you develop that relationship that's really important. And I think parents are coming back to that. It's a slow journey back, but we really need to be there where we're there for our teens.
Yeah, it starts in the younger ages, right? It starts when they're in early childhood.
Yes.
You have to develop those skills at the minute they're born.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
The minute they're born, you communicate with them. They start communicating back. Oohs and ahs. They are mimicking you.
Yes.
They are copying you. They're going to follow you. So if you become a great leader for them, a great person for your children to follow, then they will continue to develop those skills in whatever area that you give attention to. They're going to benefit from that. So we want to start early. Clean up your toys, pick it up. And when my son was a toddler, he loved picking up his toys because I didn't make it a negative thing. You don't want to make learning a negative thing.
No.
You want to make it a positive experience, right? So cleaning up our toys was a positive, fun thing. It's toys. Look at it like that. First of all, these are toys. Your child is gonna love to touch their toys.
Right.
Put them back in the container. That can be a learning thing. Going back to foundation, building blocks, picking up something and putting it from one place to another place is actually developing something in the mind of that child. So if you can really dive in and get to learn the mind of your child, parenting becomes fun. And their experience with you becomes a joy.
And parenting should be fun for most of the time. There's always going to be those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, why did I have children? We all have those moments. Every parent can say it, right? Whether it's the 2-year-old that's throwing up nonstop on the bed and you've just changed the sheets for the 5th time that night, you're like, what was I thinking? Right? To having a teenager that comes home and misses curfew by, I'm not saying 10 minutes, because 10 minutes to me is like a leeway, right? But they miss curfew by an hour, and then you have this huge argument and you're yelling at your teen. And I always ask parents in those moments of parenting, what are you role modeling? And why are you yelling at your teen? And they're like, because they relate. What emotion are you feeling as a parent? And they're like, I was terrified. They didn't answer their phone. I was scared. I'm like, so if you lead with that to your teen when they walk in the door, and
what is that?
Yeah,
fear.
And
right.
You can be angry. You can be super angry at your teen and go, I am so angry that you are an hour late and you didn't answer your phone because I was terrified you'd gotten in a car accident and were dead. That impact on your teen is like, I will never be late again. Right? Because it's not you yelling at them, it's you sharing what created that anger, the emotions behind it, right? Because I always tell parents, anger, there's an emotion behind what made you angry.
Yes.
There's always a secondary emotion. And we really need to, as parents, make sure that we're connecting with that secondary emotion from the start. We get frustrated with our toddler who doesn't tie their shoe, and so we put the shoe on them. Instead of going, I'm really frustrated, and we should have started getting ready 15 minutes earlier, it's on me, instead of yelling at a toddler for not putting their shoes on.
Yeah, it's drawing back, taking a step back, analyzing the situation, and meeting your child where they are. Being able to say, I could be wrong here. Let me analyze my emotions, how I'm feeling in this moment, because what your child is going through and what you're going through are two separate things. You're connected to one another, but you have to be able to take a step back and analyze yourself. Can you tell us how that connection with your child and the separation of that, being who you are and allowing your child to be who they are, can you talk to us about that? Because it can get mixed up. Yes, we have to have the balance of, that is my child, we're connected. He or she can see what I'm feeling, can hear what I'm feeling. They can see and understand what I'm going through, even when I don't say it, that connection. But also being able to allow them to be their own being. Talk to us about that.
That's so hard, because as a parent, we want to be in it to win it 100% of our time with our teen, right? We don't ever so it's really taking a step back. I think that's the biggest thing as a parent, and it's hard, right? As a parent, it's so hard for us to say, I need to pause. I need to take that step back. I need to look at it, and I'm connected, but I also need to let them have their individuality.
Yes.
And that's hard, because we have them from when they're little, right? So, people joke about mini-me's, or their kids are mini-me's, but we also want them to be their individual. We want them to go out and be who they are in the world, and we want to be able to be connected to them and feel with them and have those emotions, but also have that space where they're their own person, and we can respect that and have those conversations about different viewpoints, because eventually, parents, our kids have a different viewpoint than us. It doesn't matter what it is. And I'm not talking big issues, but they might, you could have a different viewpoint on how they do laundry. That's a really simple, non-confrontational thing.
Yeah.
But they do. They might have a different way. So you need to let them be that individual. Let them be who they are, and understand there's that connection and that love and that bond that won't ever go anywhere, but at the same time, respect who they're becoming.
Yeah. I mean, when the little disagreements, I love that you said laundry. It starts with the little things, right? Understanding that they are their own being. They may see it completely different from you. I understood I didn't understand this when I was younger. I'll speak about myself. When I was younger, I didn't understand that my mind was sort of scientific, right? So when the way my parents did things was completely different from the way I would do it. They didn't understand why I would do things the way I did, right? But in my mind, it just made more sense to do it this way. And as I grew, now that I'm adult, they're like, oh, she's onto something there. Maybe we should do it that way. And sometimes I agree with them. Maybe they were right. Maybe we should do it. So it's about understanding that we are two different people in a family, which is one.
Yeah.
And being able to balance that, right? So
Yes.
our child, when they're expressing their own personality, their own opinions, their own beliefs, their own ideas about things, we have to be able to sort of calm down, right? Not be so aggressive on them. I know we want to protect them. We want to help them. We want to educate them. We want to do all that we can to prepare them for the future. But doing that does not mean that we need to be so hands-on.
Right.
We can be hands-on in a trusting way. Let's circle back to trust.
What do you want to know is a tough one.
Trust, when in the teenage years, in young adulthood, in the adolescent years, it is all building trust. You're building trust between you and your child, right? And it's in teaching them how to clean up after themselves, how to treat other people, how to relate, it's in everything, right? And when they become a young adult, we let that trust go. We let them go, and we allow them to do what we've been teaching them all along, right? So let's talk about trust, building that trust when they are younger. How is trust important in the teen years for us to develop that? How can we develop trust in the teen years?
So trust is huge, right? Because that's the foundation of every relationship. It's like pouring the foundation of a house. You have to have trust. And you're building it from the time they're born, because you feed your kid on time, your baby on time, all of those things. In the teen years, I tell parents, trust is built in the smallest of moments, right? Your teen, it's about making sure that you respect your teen's boundaries. You're not looking in their phone. And I know parents say, I own the phone, I can look at the phone. You know what? I don't want someone looking at my phone if they don't ask, right? So maybe you ask your teen, go, hey, I am concerned about this. Let's look at your phone instead of I own the phone. I'm going to look at it. So it's having things like that. It's making sure you're reliable as a parent. And parents always think, well, why do I have to be reliable? If you tell your teen that you're going to be at their soccer game, their camp, their swim meet, anything, their show, their performance, make sure you show up, that you're on time. The minute you as a parent start putting other things in front of them, oh, I had a work meeting, oh, I had another work meeting. I tell parents, think about if you were sitting at a restaurant with you, waiting for your best friend, and they were a few minutes late. Okay, you might call them, text them. What if they just didn't show up? No, they just said, oh, something came up. Yeah. Well, they go, let's schedule next week. And again, they don't show up. Eventually, you wouldn't be their friend. With your teen, when you say, I'm going to be at your game, and you don't show up, eventually your teen just doesn't trust you, and you've dynamically shifted that relationship.
Yeah.
So when you do that, then they're not coming at you for a lot of things. So you really, as a parent, it's about role modeling behavior, and I always tell parents, showing up, showing that you support them, that unconditional love, the words you're using, and listening with intense curiosity.
I'm glad you went there, because you have to develop their trust in you, and you also have to develop your trust in them.
Yes.
What I was saying is, when you're teaching them how to do X, Y, and Z, you have to trust yourself that you are putting this into them and they're going to get it. Because a lot of times it's like parents, they give and it falls to the floor, if you know what I mean. They give and there's no ground for it in their minds. They think that they're giving, they're teaching, and they're not registering it. They're not getting it. But you have to trust that your child is intelligent enough to get it, to grasp what you're saying.
Yes.
And when you give that trust, and they see that you believe in them, that they are able to understand what you're saying, that they're able to get it, they will do it. They will do it.
They will, and they'll do it in their own time, right? You know, I tell parents, in amongst all the eye rolls of the teenager and the teenager saying, I know, because parents always joke, my kid knows everything.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that's just where they're at. I know, right? Every teen says that. We said it as teens. It hasn't changed in years. We all do that. Eye rolling, I rolled my eyes at my parents. We all do it, right? But we're listening. And when push comes to shove, those values, those things you've done as a parent, they come out, they show. They shine, and you always get it in the strangest moments. Someone will say, your teen did this, your kid did that, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I really didn't think they were listening to me, and clearly they were. So I tell parents, you might not think they're listening, but they are. They're just kind of trying to figure out who they are, and they want to be that cool kid with a little bit of attitude, because that's what teens do.
And sometimes they may challenge what you're saying. So they may not show that they got the message right away.
Yes.
They may challenge it first because they want to figure it out too. They want to see if this is the right thing for them. That goes back to developing their own personality, allowing them to be themselves. They want to see if what you're saying lines up with what their mental processing, right? So it's all about trusting, drawing back, allowing your teenager to be who they are.
Yes.
Meeting them where they're at, and also trusting in yourself as a parent that you've been given this gift. You've been entrusted with this gift. You're able, you're capable, you can do this. You're doing a great job right now.
Exactly.
Right?
And forgiving yourself as a parent. When you've had a bad day with your teen or your toddler, whatever age, your 30-year-old kid, it doesn't matter, you're still a parent.
Yeah.
And you're like, gosh, I kind of blew that today. Remember, you're being a parent for the first time.
Yeah.
Even after your first kid to your second kid to your fifth kid, every time you're parenting a different human being. So what worked for your first child might not work for your third child. They're different. They're all individuals and human beings. And sometimes as parents, we kind of beat ourselves up that we should be doing better, but realizing we're parenting for the first time. And when you put it in that perspective, it lets you as a parent take a breath and go, wow, this is my first time doing this. Hey, I'm doing a pretty good job.
That's
I need
really
to
good.
give myself forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And grace. Sometimes we forget to do that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for coming out today.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
We need more people like you to say what you know, to share with us that information, because when we're in high school, like you said, academics, we're going through the academics, but we don't have the education for parenting and for family and for the things that matter after high school and college. So thank you for coming out.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I love talking about parenting and teens.